Are you over there? Or can y'all hear me?
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started, and thank you all for being flexible. As one of the things we used to have in my Navy Reserve unit, we've got to be semper gumby, always flexible. So anyway, I want to welcome you to the monthly meeting of the Robert Lunz Group. We have over 1,300 members. Oh, by the way, I'm Pat Luck, the Vice Chair and the Membership Chair. We have over 1,300 members in Berkeley, Charleston, and Dorchester, and Colleton counties. And we are proud to acknowledge and recognize that the areas where we live today was once the home of several Native American tribes, and we have listed some of these here. We're an all-volunteer organization, and we have two positions open at the moment. We have the Conservation Chair and Political Chair. So if you think you might be interested in either of those positions, please reach out to one of the executive committee members and get involved, come join us. I'm going to leave this slide up for a few minutes. This is really very important. You may want to take your cell phones and take a picture of this. This is redefining harm in the Endangered Species Act. You have until the 19th of May to make a comment. I received an email today from another organization called Wildlife Guardians. And basically what the bottom line on this sounds like is you will not be able to directly harm an endangered animal or plant. But let's say you have an endangered bird in a tree. Can't hurt the bird, but you can cut the tree down now. So this is very serious. I would like for you all to get this information. You have until the 19th of May, but please consider making a comment on this. If this happens, my mind can't even wrap around the harm that is going to come from this. So please take this information down, make a comment. You have until the 19th of May. Amanda, come tell us about outings.
Sure. We have a few coming up in May. The next one is Saturday, May 10th, the day before Mother's Day. And we are doing a Palmetto Trail hike through the National Forest to some Carolina Bay wetlands to see some pitcher plants. We are helping SCDNR on Wednesday, the 21st, to make some of the wire refabricated cages for the oyster reef restoration efforts. And then Saturday, May 24th, there's going to be a trip. We're going to meet in Mount Pleasant, Charleston area to drive up to Huntington Beach State Park to do some birding. So please, if you're interested, go register and you'll get more information on those.
All righty, mark your calendars. On the 5th of June, the Robert Lunz Group, in conjunction with Piccolo Spoleto, will be presenting from Cumbie to Winyon, the importance of the South Carolina coast. We'll be in our usual place in the other room where we should have been, but mark your calendars. This is going to be a good program. Come join us. But for tonight, we have Liz Fly. She's the Director of Resilience and Ocean Conservation at the Nature Conservancy, the South Carolina chapter. She's from St. Louis, Missouri, but she's lived here for nearly 2 decades. She works on resilience, adaptation, marine-related issues. She received her PhD in biological sciences from the University of South Carolina, go Gamecocks, studying climate change impacts on marine mussels around the world, and she joined the Nature Conservancy in South Carolina in 2017. So Liz, thank you. Come on up and let's see something.
No,
I think we need a camera.
Hi, and thanks everybody for inviting me. I'm gonna get my, what are these called, props? I might focus mostly on this screen because I always like point at screens, so y'all want to shift that way. I'll dance between them. Presentation in the chat here. Yeah, will this work? Can I check that? Oh, it does. Okay, excellent. All right, well, good evening. And yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks for inviting me. I'm really glad to be here. So great introduction. I'll just jump into my content because I put a lot into this. So let's go for it. Just pull me off the stage when it's getting late. So I work for the Nature Conservancy. Probably most of you are familiar with the Nature Conservancy, but I wanted to give you a very brief overview, specifically of the work we do in South Carolina, because some people don't know the breadth of work that we do across the state. So probably know our bread and butter is land conservation, land protection. We've been doing that for over 60 years now in the state. So this map's showing all of the protected lands in South Carolina as of like last month. But we do a lot more across the state. So some things we also work on are freshwater, including like introducing biological standards into the state water plan. So we're not just thinking about water withdrawals for people, but water for the critters that are in the rivers and streams. We get good fire on the ground. So prescribed fire, which keeps our native forests healthy and also provides, really good benefits to water quantity and water quality as well. Along with that, we do forest restoration and management. So particularly like our native longleaf pine ecosystem, which is very unique to North America. We are restoring those and helping landowners manage their forests. Or even dabbling in some sustainable agriculture down in the low country, particularly focusing on small scale farmers, Black owned farms, helping them work sustainably and manage like their fields that are getting inundated with saltwater, sea level rise into the future. We even work offshore. I lead our oceans program as well. So we're doing some work with like offshore fish, like snapper grouper, also a bunch of work with oysters, so state fisheries as well. And then what I'm going to talk about today, a little footprint and leaf combination, I don't know, is focusing on nature-based solutions for resilience. So this is really the combination of people and nature and how we can enhance our resilience for both people and nature. So that's what I'm going to dig into today. And I just always have to showcase South Carolina's amazing natural resources that we have from the mountains to the sea. You all know this, so I don't need to spend a lot of time on this. I just wanted to put some pretty pictures of all the incredible things, geography and critters we have, again, from our mountains to our sea. So this is really, what gets us up in the morning. And I spend too much time behind my desk. I'd rather be out here looking at all this stuff. We probably all feel the same way. But we all know that there are threats to all these natural resources as well, right? So again, none of this will be new to you, but population growth. South Carolina is the 4th fastest growing state in the nation, and a significant number of that's coming to the coast. So where we are, we're getting lots of new people every day. More people, of course, means greater pressure on our natural resources we do have, means more impacts on the infrastructure that we do have, this aging infrastructure that we do have, and the need for more development and more infrastructure. So what do we do with that? So talking about that, development, this is actually a model from 2003 predicting the development of the Charleston region. I haven't compared this 2020, 2030 slide with current urban sprawl, but I will need to see how accurate they were back in 2003. But I'm sure it's close, if not more than that right now. But land use change, of course, is what we're dealing with, and we're losing forests, agriculture fields, and wetlands, and all these things to development. And then we got all of our climate change impacts, right? So we're all very familiar with the sea level rise issues along our coast, flooding our infrastructure, but then also, eroding our marshes and impacting our natural resources as well. Severe storms from the mountains to the sea now, right? So we're dealing with these impacts. Wildfires. Table Rock was the largest wildfire at the time when it was burning, and that's the Highway 31 fire from the coast, from Myrtle Beach, a number of years ago, but we also had one just recently in that area as well. And extreme heat. It's hot and getting hotter. We all know this. So, what do we do with this? How can we learn from nature to think about all of these impacts that we're dealing with? Because we know that nature is inherently resilient. And there's a lot of lessons that we should learn from nature that I think have been there in the past. I think we lost touch with a lot of those lessons, and I think there is movement to get back to those. But, things like nature's adaptable. We know that nature can rebuild and regenerate in the, post-disaster. Nature's able to balance itself and provide some level of stability, redundancy and interconnectedness, right? I mean, you just think about food webs in general, but everything's connected in nature. And then resourcefulness and creativity, and that's the one I'm like, we got to start thinking outside the box to deal with some of these issues. How can we get more creative and push some more innovative solutions? What's my next slide? I don't remember. Okay. So, again, how can we learn from nature? Well, we talk a lot about nature-based solutions, and that's how we're enhancing resilience for nature and for people. And you may have seen semantics. There's a whole bunch of different definitions for nature-based solutions. So you may have come across something this in your career just around. But really, these are just, it's an approach that uses natural processes and ecosystems to solve some challenge. I mean, that's a very simple definition, right? But one of the key pieces here is that these solutions almost always provide multiple additional benefits: economic, environmental, social benefits. So you picture a seawall. Seawall's there to stop a shoreline from eroding. That's its function. We can even argue if it does that, but that's its function, right? Think about a living shoreline with an oyster reef with a marsh behind it that's doing the exact same thing. It's stopping the erosion, but you've also got water quality benefits from the oysters. You've got storm buffering benefits from the marsh. You've got the birds and the crabs and all the other critters that live in there. So, and those are the things that we have a challenge quantifying when we're trying to justify doing nature-based solutions, as opposed to great infrastructure, but something that we really need to be able to quantify better. Nature-based solutions also kind of fall on this spectrum, right? So you've got your traditional gray infrastructure that we're all used to, that people have been using for a long time now. You've got more like hybrid, engineered green solutions, and you get down to, straight up restoration and protection of our larger natural ecosystems. And I like to talk about this spectrum just because people often think, well, I can't do a green solution. And I'm like, well, there's hybrid. You can still, if you need to, you can still have some concrete in there. You can still have some pipes, right? But let's green as much as we can, essentially. So it's not one thing or the other. But I could stand here and talk about definitions and technical standards for nature-based solutions and, the modern day nature-based solutions, which I will. But I do think it's important to recognize nature-based solutions are not a new concept, right? I mean, that's the term we use these days, but people have been living in commune with nature since the beginning. And so I thought this statistic was interesting, that Indigenous communities today protect 80% of the world's biodiversity. So that's pretty incredible. And you probably heard the term traditional ecological knowledge, right? So this is the evolving knowledge acquired by these Indigenous and local people who say live with the land, in relationship with the land. So, critically important nowadays in any of the engagement work that we do to, learn from the Indigenous knowledge that may exist where we're working. And if you really want to dig into this, has anyone seen this book before? You can check it out. It's so cool. It's by Julia Watson, and it shows just a number of examples of really cool traditional ecological knowledge examples from around the world. So I just screenshot some pages from it. Hopefully that's okay. But these are living root bridges in India. So these, this community, they live in forested hills and mountains. And during the monsoon season, these villages get cut off from one another because of, floodwaters. So they have learned to build these living root bridges over these gullies so they can still maintain their travel between villages, and these bridges can withstand those floodwaters. Now, another amazing thing about this is it takes decades to establish these bridges. So the thought about, the generational knowledge and the handing down the knowledge through the decades, and the patience and the like faith in the process that like the vision, you know, for the future, that this is what it's going to be, just really blows my mind, because the world we live in today is fast paced and you need a solution right now. And, you know, so what can we take from that to pull into the work we do today? But this, I read about this right after Hurricane Helene. It's like, God, what if there was something like that up in the mountains, you know? These are wetlands outside of Calcutta, India, that serve as their wastewater treatment system. But so much so that it also serves as aquaculture and a fishing area and a recreational area. So like it works, it's actually cleaning the wastewater such that people can actually then get sustenance from that wetland. And then this, I'm not encouraging us to do something like this, but this is fascinating. This is a village of Ganvi in Benin. And they have built their village over these aquaculture pens in this giant lake. And apparently Ganvi means we survived. Like they are just like a resilient community that's out there living there with their food supply. And for some reason I was like, oh man, I could see Charleston looking that wet. And so that's just kind of what struck me from that picture. But again, it's just like, there's so many just cool examples about communities that have just, you know, are living much more in concert with nature than we are. And so feel free to take a look at that after my talk. So again, I'm asking these questions a lot, but what can we learn from those communities? How do we just reconnect with nature? There's just been this like, you know, in the world of technology and all things, it's in this fast-paced world, there's certainly been a disconnection with nature. What can we learn from nature's resilience so we can, you know, be more resilient? And so we started asking these questions, and that's where this program, the Nature-Based Exchange, came about. So this is a program developed by the Nature Conservancy, but in partnership with the City of Charleston, Clemson School of Architecture, particularly their Resilient Urban Design program, and then 3 private firms, Biohabitat, Circulus, and Robinson Design Engineers. Every initiative needs kind of a boring goal. There it is. But you know, we are focusing on South Carolina and how do we move forward practical, feasible steps towards more nature-based solutions in South Carolina. So that's our goal. So the first year, oh wait, no, another slide in there. And I mentioned the multiple benefits of nature-based solutions. Of course, you know, modern day nature-based solutions can address a whole variety of issues, right? And we're so one issue focused these days. I feel like, okay, we got to write an RFP to address this one specific thing. So here's a bunch of things that nature-based solutions can address, of course. And then, as I mentioned before, the multiple benefits that come from this. And this was from a really fantastic White House document on nature-based solutions that I don't know if it exists anymore, but here's a screenshot from it. Okay, so the first year of the Nature-Based Exchange, how many are familiar with the Dutch dialogues that took place in Charleston? Okay, pretty much everybody. So the Nature-Based Exchange was modeled after that to some extent, in the sense of like getting people together to talk through these things. Dale Morris, who some of you may know, was instrumental in the Nature-Based Exchange. And so we kind of modeled it off of that. But so we spent a year focusing on these specific topics around nature-based solutions, you know, common messaging. Let's just all get on the same page about what that even means. What's the definition? You know, how do we talk about it? Planning for nature-based solutions. So in like comprehensive plans and stormwater plans and all those important plans you have to have. How do we fund them? We did have a whole workshop on equity and nature-based solutions, and then some design standards workshops. Workshops are not the sexiest thing, but you know, they're important. So they happen. But we pulled all of the key takeaways and important things out of those workshops. And the first thing we did was produce the Nature-Based Exchange Compendium right here, which is, I'm not going to call it the Bible of nature-based solutions in South Carolina, but it's pretty solid. So you can download it from our website if you want. It's really, I think, not tooting my own horn, really good information in there, right? So that was kind of the first thing, was takeaways from all those workshops. We also produced this pocket guide for natural nature-based solutions. which y'all are welcome to take one tonight. This is, stepping back a little bit more for general public, elected officials, people that, don't really know much about them at all, just to kind of get them understanding what they are. We even have a pathway to a nature-based solution. So, so trying to, again, kind of the common messaging piece of it. And then we also created a podcast called Conversing with Nature. So this is that even broader public outreach. Let's just reconnect people with nature and highlight South Carolina's natural resources, highlight people that are doing amazing work in these fields. So we're wrapping up our second season of the podcast right now. And you probably all know many of the folks that were interviewed throughout the last 2 years, but it's been very fun, and there's social media if you want to follow us on this as well. Out of the compendium, out of the workshops, we heard loud and clear that we need more specific trainings and skill sets of people, able to do this type of work in South Carolina. So since that first year of workshops, we've moved into offering trainings. And so the first one we offered was on native plants, soils, and habitat features. And we actually will be offering this again September 24th. If any of you are interested, follow us on social media or just reach out to me and I'll let you know when registration opens for it. But of course, that's kind of the building blocks of any nature-based solution, right? So that's why we decided to offer that course first. But we've also offered a local policy and ordinances training. We offered this in Charleston, Georgetown, and Beaufort already over the winter. Really well received, a bunch of city, county planners and zoners and all the right people in the room to be kind of hearing that message. So that was really encouraging. We are redesigning that so it can be offered in chunks or, offered in different capacities. So if anyone, wants to pull some of that information into any other events or opportunities y'all have, please let us know because we're happy to do that. Future trainings, we're going to have one on risk management and risk reduction. What exactly that means yet, I'm not quite sure, but that was a topic that ranked very highly amongst people, and then we've been trying to figure out exactly what it means.
Where's that photo?
That is good question. I try to always cite all of them, and you called me out on that one because it's not. I don't know. I'm gonna have to.
And center?
Yeah, sorry. I'll figure it out though. We're gonna offer one on landscape scale planning. So this is more of so for example, Conservation Bank has priority lands they'd like to protect. TNC has priority lands we'd like to protect based on resilient corridors and climate change. And so we would love to be able to bring chambers of commerce, developers even, or, people eyeing kind of larger landscape developments and planning to be able to incorporate all of that together. And then we'll have some trainings on urban green stormwater infrastructure as well. Now, I want to acknowledge there are some trainings out there on some of this stuff, like stormwater in particular. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel or partner or bring people in. So if there's anything y'all want us to focus on, I would love to hear that as well. We're always looking for more ideas and opportunities to. If you got something now. All right. We've also collected a database of all the nature-based solutions that we can find in South Carolina. And this is really important because there's a lot of, that was in New Jersey. That was in Washington.
Right.
Oh my God. Pay attention to that. So
Right.
being able to highlight things in our own backyard is really important. So we worked with a graduate student, Anna, at the University of Michigan to work on this, and she just went deep. It was incredible. This is a story map. I can send you all the link. It's really cool. That shows everything she was able to find in the state. And then she gave us some information like the total number of nature-based solutions in the state over time. So you can see the past 2 decades, it's been this really significant increase in implementation, which is very exciting. The most common type of nature-based solution, bioretention, is by far, which is rain gardens, bioswales, more of the kind of green stormwater infrastructure. So it's pretty easy to install a rain garden. So that's why I'm sure it's the top, but then we've got, restoration and living shorelines. And, the most common benefit that these are, impact that these things are providing, flooding is the number one, which is probably not.
Go back a slide. Thank you. Okay.
Good, okay. Where are we? Okay, so I've been talking about like kind of different types of nature-based solutions, but I wanted to give you just one slide with some discrete examples of things that we call nature-based solutions. And the scale and impact of these vary widely, right? I mean, from floodplain preservation, land conservation is a nature-based solution, down to, putting pervious pavers in your driveway, low impact development, right? So there's something for everybody, I guess is the way to put that. We even consider property buyouts and then the subsequent restoration of that land to be nature-based solutions, because if you buy it out with federal dollars, you can never develop it on it again. So just wanted to give you some kind of examples of what I'm talking about here. And then I'm flying. Are going too fast? I wanted to give you some examples of specific projects that have been successful or kind of in the works right now. And not all of this is my work or TNC's work. Some of it is amazing partners' work, and I've clarified, put their logos on there. But I just like to highlight any really cool project. So the first one is Unity Park in Greenville. Are y'all familiar with Unity Park? Yeah. Some nods, yes and no. Okay, so this is Unity Park. It's really right in downtown Greenville. And this is the Reedy River that runs through it. And it's a huge, fascinating history of this park. You can find it all online, but it's just straight up floodplain. And for years, there's been industrial buildings in there, low-income communities nearby. It just was kind of a unkempt and a really the river had been narrowed to this tiny little thing that then would flood terribly. So the city of Greenville worked with MKSK and Biohabitats to restore this entire park, and it's just absolutely incredible. And it's utilized all the time. You go out there, there's tons of people. There's the coolest playground in the world there. I can't wait to take my kids there. Running trails, breweries, but it's designed to flood. The drama. This is Hurricane Helene. So did y'all notice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Hurricane Helene. I think this was 60 feet of flood water in there.
Wow.
But 72 hours later, completely dry, people were already out there exercising and picnicking, recovering from the storm. And this is not the first time this had happened. This was 20, date might be in there somewhere, but this was several years ago. Again, same thing. And it's really interesting because when a storm like this happens, you'll see social media pictures of people look at that. That didn't work at all. Look at this flooding there. And it's no, it's supposed to do that. Within 24 hours, it's back to that. So, you can design these things to be like this. So that's a cool Unity Park example. This is a creek daylighting in Columbia. So you may be familiar that
State hospital.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. The Bull Street redevelopment, if you're familiar with this. Not to throw the Army Corps under the bus, but the Army Corps and other agencies over the years paved over so many streams, put them in pipes underground, diverted water essentially underground to hide it. And so you don't even know what used to be there. And this is one example of this. So this is the Branch Smith Creek in that Bull Street redevelopment. So this is a above ground section of it, and you can see the broken pipes and how this is not a healthy stream. But this is essentially what most of it looked like. And this area was having big flood issues, believe it or not, and especially during the 2015 big storm in Columbia, massive issues. So the city of Columbia worked with Robinson Design Engineers to daylight this stream. And so this is just some cool construction photos. That's Joshua Robinson there. making sure the grade and everything is right? It's not just like planting some flowers, right? I mean, this takes significant engineering, obviously. But they daylighted this whole stream.
Wow.
And look what it is now. So, and it holds a massive amount of water through there. It's got all these beautiful plants and a riparian system. So you've got your bees and your butterflies and your birds living in there happily. They also maintain, green space. So it's a really great recreational amenity for people to come by. And then they did also still include some pipes underground to manage overflow of water during really heavy storms because they predicted those. So again, that kind of hybrid solution, you can still have some pipes in the ground.
Do you know how long that took them to do start to finish?
Oh gosh, don't off the top of my head. I mean, it was years, yeah. And something that is a huge challenge in these projects is the contractors that are capable of doing them. For a number of reasons, the availability of native plants is a big one, but just like understanding how to do this type of construction, or even the willingness, I think, to do it sometimes. So there were some slowdowns, I think, for this one because of that as well. This is a project that the Nature Conservancy worked on with Robinson Design Engineers in the city of Conway. So y'all probably familiar with the flooding that has happened in Conway over the years as well. This is an image from Hurricane Florence in 2018. And you see that church right there? That's Trinity United Methodist Church. It's kind of like the most popular image of the flooding in Conway is to take a picture of that church. But just adjacent to this church, there was an 8-acre piece of land that had a bunch of houses on it that were repetitively flooded. So the city voluntarily bought out those houses. So they had this large piece of land to do something with. And part of the reason this area floods is, again, Army Corps Crabtree Swamp. Used to be a swamp, and it was channelized back in the 70s. And so now it's just crazy flash flooding because it's just, very straight channel banks and the water flows through there at a high velocity. So if we could reconnect Crabtree Swamp to the floodplain and provide a created wetland, this could be a good option. So that's what the Nature Conservancy provided the funding for RDE to design this. So I don't know if there's a pointer here, but this building up there, that's the church that we were just looking at from the other image. So this is essentially a created wetland. And there are some public amenities in there as well, like an amphitheater and a playground, I think. And there's a second project I don't have pictured that actually connects it to Crabtree Swamp and really connects reconnects that floodplain.
It's like a Carolina Bay.
Look at my next slide. So yes, this project was inspired by the Carolina Bays here in South Carolina. So good one, Laura. That's where they drew their inspiration. So this is just a rendering. This one is not in the ground yet. The city of Conway received FEMA brick funding to engineer and implement this project. And that money was just taken away. So they are in the process of the engineering work. So the city's committed to finishing that. But we're gonna have to find new money to actually put this one in the ground, which just breaks my heart because I'm so excited about this project. And it was also the first nature-based brick project to be funded in South Carolina. So it was like,
Remind us, what is brick?
sorry, FEMA Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities funding. So it was a pre-disaster annual opportunity for communities to apply for mitigation funding, essentially. But nature-based solutions were kind of a big piece of prioritizing brick funding. So we're gonna make it happen somehow. Another project here in Charleston. So if you're familiar with and Shadow Moss, the Bridgepoint townhomes that repetitively flooded. So they were all bought out by the city of Charleston with some, I think, city and FEMA funds. And the city worked with, I think I may not have done the logos on this one. Sorry, well, there's some of them. Let's see, Biohabitats was the main contractor on this one to design this about 5-acre parcel into an ecological park to handle the flooding and then provide a number of benefits as well. So That's where the townhomes used to be. This is a rendering of what that spot will look like. This was already installed and this is what it looks like now. So I received an email today with a list of at least 10 birds that were out there utilizing the space. And people were out there enjoying it. And this was a tricky one with community engagement. Some people were not particularly, they wanted like a soccer field or, something on the site. And so there was some pushback, but I think people are starting to really appreciate this one. And then the last example I wanted to give is living shorelines. I'm just going to show you some successful examples of them. TNC's been doing living shorelines for 15 years now, I think. So this is Botany Island. These are oyster castles, if you've ever seen these before. They're about as heavy as cinder blocks, but they're made of environmentally friendly concrete. They used to be filled with crushed oyster shell as well, because if you know, oysters like to settle on oyster shell. But oyster shell is really a limited resource these days. So oyster castles no longer have the crushed oyster shell in them, but thankfully they still work to recruit oysters. But hopefully you can tell that we installed it and then the sediment was just like feet higher. And the marsh has already grown all the way back to some of the back reefs. So, and there's pretty significant erosion, you can see in 2018. So that's been a pretty exciting one for us. This is Goldbug Island. So if you cross over the Ben Sawyer Bridge to Sullivan's Island, if it's low tide, you can look over at Goldbug Island and see this project. This was our longest project to date back in 2016. And you can see, that was like a huge horseshoe shaped erosion behind that spot. And now the marsh has essentially grown all the way back. You've got 3-inch oysters on there. That island is owned by the East Cooper Outboard Motor Club. They like boats and they like to drink beer and sit out there and fish. And they will tell you how many more fish they catch now since we built that reef. So they've been some of the biggest champions for us. This is just Winyah Bay, just another little example of, what it looks like.
So what are the contributing factors to the erosion?
To the erosion, it's a variety of factors, but so boat wake is one of them. And then higher and higher tides, just kind of eating away at the marsh grass repetitively. And then even like loss of oysters will then, unstabilize, I guess, the shoreline and eat away at the marsh grass too. But really right now it's like the wave energy coming in, and then, the storms and sea level going up and down, or not sea level going up and down.
So can anybody just install one of those things in their backyard marsh?
Good question. No, it's not that simple, unfortunately. There is, as of a couple years ago, a living shoreline regulation in South Carolina. That's very new. A number of, including TNC, contributed to the research to develop that regulation. So private homeowners can now get a living shoreline permit and then get one installed on the properties. So at least you have just, you can go the seawall path or the living shoreline path, but at least you have both paths now, as opposed to just having the seawall path. We're working out the kinks of how easy it is to go through the living shoreline permit process.
These need a real firm substrate. You can't put.
Oyster castles, yeah, so oyster castles are typically used in the higher wave energy environments. In lower wave energy environments, you can get away with bag shell or those manufactured wire reefs if you've seen those, or even like bamboo stakes or tomato stakes, just kind of any substrate that the oysters will grow on. We've done these in softer places where we put a pallet down first and then put the castles on them. So the pallet sinks in the mud, but not the castles. But yeah, these are better for higher energy environments.
So are those better than the wire oyster things that I?
No, not necessarily. No. And these are quite expensive. I don't think a homeowner would be getting oyster castles necessarily, unless you live like right on the intercoastal waterway and you're got super high energy right along your shoreline. But MWRs are right now kind of the most popular method
MWBR.
manufactured wire reefs, MWRs.
We're doing an outing on the 21st.
Oh yeah, you can go help build some on this.
Yeah.
What did you say?
We have the outing with DNR to make
Oh.
them on the 21st.
Yeah. Yeah, I could talk living shorelines for days, so if you have follow-up questions, please let me know. And I just like to leave on what can you do. This isn't an exhaustive list, but this is some things. So remember that every drop counts. I know I'm preaching to the choir here too, but you're done. I'm done, guys.
It's still showing everything.
Power of the button.
Well, okay.
Press the
There-
button.
Does that work? I don't know how to put the screen back down.
It's fine.
There, okay, we're good. It's like, you don't get to do anything. Every drop counts. Manage the stormwater on your property. Yeah, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here, but native plants and landscapes, of course, support your local nurseries with native plants. There's not that many around town, but they're there and they need our business. Build living shorelines instead of seawalls. We just talked about that. Volunteer. Build a living shoreline with TNC or with DNR, their SCORE program, or go help build the MWRs when they have their build dates. We are currently building a very large oyster castle reef along Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort's shoreline on the Broad River. And we have 2 volunteer dates in June, if anybody wants to come. It's a workout, it's those oyster castles, but we have a really good time. So if you're interested, let me know, I'll give you more information. Educate yourself, you all know this, you're all very well educated, but there's a lot of opportunities out there. And then speak up, attend council meetings, attend public meetings for the really boring things like comprehensive plans. It's really, I know it's kind of boring, but it's really important. Also providing public comments on, zoning rewrites and things like that. Make sure your voice is heard. And then also thank the elected officials when you do see good work. If you see, City Charleston or anywhere, like put in a bioswale. Thank you. Yes, we want to see more of that. I think that's really. And then I totally stole this quote from Joshua Robinson of Robinson Design Engineers. He always shows this slide, but I really like it, so I stole it. I'm gonna stop there and thank you for your time.
Are there any questions?
I attended your educational session last year. It was great.
Okay.
I appreciate
Yeah.
all the work that went into it and it's much more comprehensive than we usually see on these topics. Appreciate that. But having said that, a large part of what we've been looking at, seeing and doing have been primarily motivated by and evaluated according to what I would call aesthetic measures. It seems to me that the key to nature-based solutions is observation, testing, and management, retooling management in some cases. Instead of even a natural wetland is going to go away if you leave it alone. You have to manage it as a wetland. What is going on to try to redefine what is restoration? What is biodiversity? A flower doesn't do that, or do we get involved in the soils more thoroughly in terms of are we incorporating the bio there? There are a lot of questions about the ongoing management once we get into it. Pipe is easy. This is complicated. It's not rocket science. It's way more complicated.
It is, yes, exactly. I don't think I have a great answer for you, but I will say, number one of the reasons we started this database is that we want to actually track these projects over time and track the monitoring and the maintenance of them and get whatever data we can to start, a little bit more rigorously looking at these types of projects and also understanding the funding of them, permitted, just kind of the lay of the land for all the projects. I think there has not been the funding to, monitor and maintain these things like there should be. So that's
Well, there has to be, if it's going to stay, if it's going to be sustained. There's a lot of, I know we want to stay in South Carolina, but most of the work that I've seen has been in China. There's fun cities.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and every bit of land,
Fun cities.
Fun and earth.
well, you just did.
So what is it?
A lot of what we're talking about here.
It's Fun City?
Yeah,
But at like
They go
large
for
city
water,
scale.
So that it doesn't flood. That's where it gets the name, but there's a kind of an unusual aspect of it because China's doing it and they have a little bit more power over their infrastructure than we do. And it's more comprehensive. I guess that would be a reason. But there's a professor at Clemson who's gone to China several times and written extensively on cities. But you know, there's work there. And what I get really kind of concerned about is we need to do more work. We need to get into it and really understand what more specific scientific goals we're really trying to achieve. Not just I'm a landscape architect. I appreciate pretty pictures.
Sure,
It sells projects,
right.
but that's not what we're talking.
Yeah, and that, so I think a lot of the data are out there, but it's not in
Split up
any.
in lots.
Right,
of
exactly. So
sources.
it's
That's what we
difficult
don't do well.
put it
is
all
putting
in one
it
place.
together.
Yeah, and so that is a challenge when you want to use a nature-based solution for some hazard mitigation project. You want to be like, I can reduce the flood risk by 2 feet with this project. You can say that with I don't know, concrete culvert or something, because you've got technical design standards for them. You don't have technical design standards for a restored stream to the same extent. So how do we either figure out how to make technical standards for those types of projects or move away from relying on that in that way?
You got some pretty good pictures.
And what?
You got some pretty good pictures.
It works.
Well, what happens in very short order within a decade after you have a pretty picture? Goes wood,
It was wet, it goes to woodland.
not a wetland.
These things require maintenance. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, you can't just install any of these and just walk away and be like it's done. But
But that's the natural flow of wetlands. They turn into, that's just what happens. You know, a wetland is created by disturbance.
Question online.
okay,
You did mention bioswales a few times. How would you describe what that is?
oh, I never have like 30-second pitches for any of these things. Amanda, you might know better than me. No, I mean a bioswale is it can be like an engineered but system, like for example, in a median in a road where you've got this kind of natural ditch to an extent that can store and then slowly filter the storm water, and it's planted with native plants. So it's that like store, soak, drain or whatever that is. So it collects the storm water and then slowly drains it out. That's good enough description.
Somebody said, love Wendell Berry.
Yeah.
Good job, Liz. Very informative. Thank you. Anybody else has any other questions? Feel free to add it now.
I just had one more. It kind of tags on to the training and maintenance aspect.
Yeah.
What sort of appetite or maybe do you see around in the broader trainings? Because I know even in like more natural based building methods and things like that, there can be a lot of fervor behind it, but it's more, if you're gonna DIY it, if you're looking for a contractor, they're likely not versed in some of the practices or the standards or the training's not out there to bring a workforce in, then to make some of these projects more scalable or cost effective. So are you seeing movement in that direction or partnering with Clemson or other, institutions or like local technical colleges that can kind of bring that to a broader potential?
Yeah, that's my goal for sure. I taught a class at Clemson, or Clemson Design Center, so to like landscape architecture students this semester. So we're kind of getting that side of things, but a lot of this is the maintenance of them, and a lot of giant landscape companies, they mow and they blow, right? And and a lot of cities will contract with these landscape companies to do all their landscaping. So I mean, unfortunately, there have been like rain gardens and things put in to then get mowed to the ground because the landscape people don't understand. And then the public is like, look at that thing, that looks so ugly. Like, I don't have any faith in nature-based solutions because look at that ugly thing. So I think there's an opportunity there.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where I would love to target in the future.
It feels like, you know, all of this enthusiasm about making every drop count and things. It's more like we're at the elementary school level and we need to keep going to help people get to junior and senior high. And basically that is over the time of watching what you put in originally mature and then have the, you know, the training, somebody's gotta tell us what to do next, because I have a rain catching basin that I love, but I don't know if I'm doing the right thing year 3 that I did year 1.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like there's a lot of people that have that. They're not available to sort of bring us along into that maturing phase.
Right.
We need nature-based managers.
Nature-based managers.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
seriously.
really.
But on dealing with landscape level stuff, one of the things I do in for my courses when I did that is I took that little image you did of the early 2000 Clemson study in the Charleston area. And I put that against, you know, the growth of the Ace Basin and now the Black River. And that is one of the greatest opportunities we have for expanding control on a landscape level. I don't know if we're talking just about Charleston, we need to get bigger scales.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one way we can try to make a little bit more optimistic statement about our future too.
Yes, for sure. Some of you have probably thought about this before, but we really need to connect the Ace Basin to the Francis Marion,
Yeah.
wildlife corridor that goes across.
I was just talking about that.
Yeah, we
I was
submitted
just
a proposal
that,
to start exploring that.
Don't forget the Black River, that's the newest.
And then, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
be awesome. And we just gotta move because development's moving up by 26.
Yeah, all over Jasper.
Amanda, did we have any more questions on chat or are we good?
Yeah, we have one more.
Okay.
We restored the FEMA grant funding.
Call your Congress people. All I got right now.
They don't listen.
Yeah.
They don't answer.
They think we're all
Doesn't
big,
matter, keep following.
conservatives.
They don't do this.
All right, if we've got time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions, any more questions? All righty, well, thank you. That was wonderful. Hey, folks, make sure you mark your calendar for the 5th of June and come join us for Piccolo's Palato. Come see us in June.
Yeah, that would be great.
Sign up for the email list on the clipboard at the front.
Bye, Carol. Thanks for coming.